Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for move 2 of Magnus Carlsen versus the world in a daily chess 960 game. And Magnus has somewhat surprised us, at least surprised me here. He's played d4 immediately on move 2. And while we did kind of look for d4, at some point in the opening, I wasn't expecting it to be on move 2. I was expecting, probably something like this. We covered a lot of possibilities with the bishop, right, in the last couple analyses, right? But we were like, we kind of refuted that, so we knew it was going to go for a bishop move on move 2, but we looked at knight c3. We said that was a little too passive for a guy like Magnus. So I thought really it was going to be the f pawn for move 2. The d pawn is a little surprising, and I think if we just follow our instincts here, we instantly retake, or we just instantly take, and there's no way for him to immediately retake. Now, what I don't like about this is that it kind of just enables him to get this queen side control and also open up his queen, right? And then we could follow up, a very natural looking move, defending with a knight, which is, all cool and good, right? But then he's gonna definitely put his bishop in here, battery with the queen, and then we probably match with our bishop. But then, I'm kind of worried about things like, b3 here, right? b3 covered by the bishop, forces our bishop to move back, and then even into b5, kicking the knight out. If we allow something like this, well then, our knight's going to be like anywhere really, but the most important thing is that it's going to not be defending the pawn anymore. And then he could just recapture, right? And then he's got a pawn that's just hanging out here, right? Could be a weakness, could be a strength. Currently, it's covered by the bishop. It's going to be covered by the knight here in a second, after he retakes this pawn. So, I don't think that's... Honestly, I don't think that's too bad. I don't think that's too good, though. Just to kind of play it on the board here, right? Defend, here, here. And then I'm looking at... okay. See? This is where my perfectly averageness comes in. Yeah, the bishop doesn't cover because he's moved it to battery, right? He still has things like this, of course. And it says, what do we do here? It says we take, and I understand that actually, yes, because even though we've given that up, we have this here, and we're forking, and there's actually no way to save this rook, so he has to go here, right? And then definitely doesn't want that. He doesn't. We would not mind that. So c3 is not actually that good of a move anyway. He's probably going to play something defensive, maybe throw the knight in here. Probably going for here to have a look at both these pieces, right? But just back to it, right? If we kind of deny our initial instinct of retaking, or taking in the center, I mean, because he doesn't have any way to retake immediately, it looks good. It looks like we just win a pawn, right? If we kind of just step aside from that, what I see is kind of maybe f5, which gives you the kind of the Albin counter gambit structure in the Queen's gambit line, sort of. This is the pawn structure. Obviously, very, very different theory than the counter gambit, right? Because there's pieces are different. But just look at just that pawn structure, right? That's a pattern that I see that I kind of would be able to identify and recognize. But at the same time, I don't know why we do that, because neither of these two pawns that we're essentially offering him are able to be recaptured kind of instantly. So he could take here, right? And then we would maybe, just go here or something. But then that would allow him to actually bring his f-pawn in and reinforce. So I don't actually like that all too much. I don't want his f-pawn kind of to just be able to move with purpose. I kind of want him to have to invest in f4, if you get what I'm saying, right? Like if we let him take here, and then we attack the pawn goodness, if we attack the pawn, we allow him to open up his queen with a purposeful move, a move that actually means something, because he's just strengthening his position in the center with these 3 pawns, and that's really, I don't like that. If he wants to move his f pawn, I want him to do it in a situation where it doesn't provide him kind of explicit, obvious value. I want it to be in such a way that it just looks like kind of a normal mid move, right? I want it to have the sole purpose of opening up the queen rather than the dual purpose of strengthening the center and opening the queen. If you get what I'm saying, right? But the thing here though is just that, like, if we move that knight out immediately, he could just kick it out, and then we go somewhere like here. And if we go somewhere like there, well, we can't go here, 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 here. Here's covered by the bishop. Here is just covered by this pawn that's now here, and this, right? So if we move our knight in, we actually end up getting trapped, right? And if we move it out to the side, well, I mean, he could trade. He's probably not going to trade in that situation. He's probably just going to kick it out, to be quite honest. And from there, I mean, we're sitting here, to be truthful, and that's not a great spot for the knight to be, especially given that you don't want to. Once the knight lands here, you don't want to move like the c pawn to like get it in or anything. So you're gonna go like here and then here, or well, it's gonna land here and then go from there to here. After this, right? And then it's kind of just you're making too many knight moves. At that point, you've moved your knight more than the rest of your pieces combined. If you're us, and so that's not too great. Alternatives to that, I mean, nice and solid d6, but kind of just asking for him to take that space. And if we're being honest, we don't want to give Magnus the space. You know, we're playing a French defense against Magnus Carlsen, right? And I personally am just not a fan of the French defense to begin with, so I don't want to run that. I mean, it's strong. I mean, you do kind of block your bishop here. It's strong in theory. It's strong in a classical game of chess. I don't really know how strong it is in this 960 game, because you're also blocking your knight from coming out here, kind of forcing it to its second option, which is the b6 square, which is just kind of a weird place for a knight to be. And you're also, you're blocking your bishop, and you still haven't done anything about getting the queen out at all. And so I think probably the best alternative here, if we had to pick a move that's not taking, which is still what I would just do naturally and instinctively, is this right here. Kind of a Caro-Kann sort of flipped, right? And then if he takes, we take back, and we're cool and good, because our queen's open. We could, scoot it around wherever we want to put it. But we're not guaranteed that he's going to take, and I don't think any reasonable player would take in this situation and just let us have this. I think more likely maybe he'll reflect, right, and then maybe if takes, he'll get his queen in, and that's all cool and good. If not his queen, then possibly his bishop here, but that does block his knight. Knight could go here, but that blocks his bishop, so it's a little tough to gauge. And then, of course, there's still always the option of pushing, which looks really good because it limits our queen to only one movable square. If we want to break it with the c-pawn, that's looking a little scary because we're making our king weak. And there's no real other way to kind of deal with that, unless, you want to put the bishop here, threaten the back pawn. But again, I think just f3 after that. So I really do think, after looking at, kind of our options, at least for a little while, given that it is move 2 and we don't have to take things crazy seriously, or crazy in depth, I should say. I do definitely want to be taking it serious. But that we don't have to take it as in depth. I think we just retake here. Right, and we're kind of prepared for whatever he wants to respond with. I mean, it could range moving the f-pawn, which is what I would predict. It could be something as goofy as, knight b3, which kind of tries to prevent this. It actually doesn't because of our bishop. But, there's probably some things here for him. because we can't, re-push to kick the knight out. There's no real point in that. And I think really baiting c5 out of us and weakening our king to this diagonal um, could definitely be an idea of his, because this bishop can kind of slide in. Maybe, if we kick it out, that's fine. But we've connect forward on the king side, and although we love connect 4, shout out Eric Rosen again, it's not so great on the king side. But you never know. If we do this, bring the knight in, then we get a funky looking Dutch defense situation, and it's I could definitely I could come up with some ideas there. I think I think we all could, right? But I think again, there's really no doubting, at least in my opinion, an f pawn move. For some reason, I feel like I would play like c3 if I was just feeling a little crazy. Um, Partly because I only play blitz games, really. And so your opponent might just pre-move something like knight c7, right? And then just give you this pawn for free. But also for him, if we take, which, we might as well, unless we want to again commit to c5. If he does this, he can open up his knight, but what's actually more likely is opening up his bishop. And in a weird way, putting it in this long diagonal. And it's defended by 2 pieces, this pawn is, right? But we want to get our queen out, and we're going to want to develop our bishop at some point anyway. So to have this bishop, keeping an eye on that, and let me just go ahead and show this, right? To have that, keeping an eye on that, of course there's many things we didn't kind of consider. We only isolated, right, this, that we haven't looked at any other things that would make this advantageous for us yet. But I think just that, it's pretty easy to mess up if you, I don't know, go like f5 and then something, and then you move your bishop, and then you move your queen, and then all of a sudden you're giving this away. But even in that end, it becomes more of a poison pawn, really, because after you move the queen, the rook can slide out. So after just a deeper look at it, after kind of visualizing it, really nothing too scary about that. And I do think he would be giving away a pawn for somewhat no reason there. There's no value to opening up the bishop on that long diagonal, at least for a very, very, very long while, assuming we don't do something really stupid, right? So, and sacrificing a pawn just to kind of get your knight out here, typically, is it worth it? I mean, he's got a pawn and a knight, in the center. So he's up a tempo, down a pawn. Magnus himself might find that worth it, but if I was him, I wouldn't consider that worth it to me. I do want to have a look at this line here. It does suggest, like I said, actually, ironically enough, I did not consult the engine on that move there, looking for the Albin counter gambit structure. I'm surprised it's the second best move, really, because if I'm being realistic here, I only kind of looked at other lines just for the sake of the idea, for the sake of the argument. But I think everyone's just going to see this and not really give it too much thought. Because, like I said, it's only move 2, and there's no reason, really, to do too much thought. And it's going to suggest, it's not going to suggest f4, which surprises me. It's going to suggest f3, which is okay. You strengthen this pawn. But I don't really see any kind of relevant immediate risks to that pawn that would inspire you to play this safe move f3 instead of f4. I mean, maybe we bring our knight in, but in doing so, we block our own d-pawn. And you could actually just, from there, you can go here and here. At least that's what I would think. There's obviously a reason. The computer knows best, of course. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely see f5 here, and then once queen to retake the pawn, that's fine. And then yeah, I mean, c6 looks natural, just developing with an attack on the queen. I don't think Magnus would go for that. Not that I'm an expert in Magnus's move psychology, but just that, like, why would you put your queen kind of in the middle to let us attack it, right? Uh, maybe he plays f3, but I don't think he'll retake with the queen immediately, just because, as you can see, like we've already got the advantage. And here, instead of moving the knight out, you kind of take with the pawn. It doesn't make too serious of a difference, but I think I personally would go for that knight move, right? Just get the knight out. We want to put the knight there anyway, and we get a chance to do it with a tempo on the queen, right? We force this queen to move back. It can go back pretty much anywhere. It's got some good options. It doesn't want to block the knight here. Doesn't want to block the bishop really, or the knight. So e3, maybe even f2 is a good spot. I wouldn't go all the way back, right? Because there's no point in doing that if you're not going to end up with your queen developed. But even here, it's already kind of noticing a little bit of chip damage, right? This is probably an inaccuracy if queen there, because we take here, he retakes, and then he's got a nice little isolated pawn in the middle here. So we're already kind of creating targets, creating potential weaknesses for him. But yeah, I think beyond this, my number one guess for him would be f4. What's so bad about f4? It looks like f5 and then pushes, and what does that give us? That gives us c5. Very interesting. Okay, see, okay, I can kind of get that. You've limited your his queen's movement, but this, whatever this is, that just looks gross. I mean, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, but that's not something I would kind of go out of my way to get, to be quite honest. But, you never know, right? Sometimes I'm aggressive as a player, sometimes I'm defensive. Usually when I go aggressive, I'm overly aggressive. So, maybe f3 over f4 is the move. And clearly the computer would say that I'm wrong in this situation. So, I guess we'll have to see. I think it's pretty clear cut. If we come over here, have a look at the votes, overwhelming majority for taking in this situation. f6. Also, like I said, Carlsen-ish setup here, but the people that want to play f6 are kind of assuming that he's going to take and just let us have this, which he's not going to. If we play f6, he's not going to take. I can almost guarantee that. And then also some d6 voters, which is kind of interesting, because it kind of just threatens to sort of trade the pawns on the e-file here. After takes, and then we hop in here, and there's no queen to kind of like x-ray us here to kind of win the pawn back after we move the knight kind of thing. So maybe that's worth a look itself. I mean, I hadn't initially thought of that as an idea because I've kind of been obsessed with not blocking this d-pawn, but you're kind of threatening to immediately move the knight out. And I'm assuming the reason this isn't good is because, well, one, what I see here for him is f3. Second best move, but actually loses a significant advantage. And let's have a look why. Like, I would see this, right? And that just shuts down the knight. There's no really movement for the knight, and you've just blocked your d-pawn. So that's kind of made this move worthless to us if he plays f3, and that's what I would do if I was white here. But it actually says that he should just go ahead and take, right? And then we're gonna take, and then it's gonna want c4 from him. Okay. All right. And what's the point of that? I guess. All right. Well, I guess it's not as good of an advantage as the computer initially thought, because it was 0.8 something. Now we're at 0.7, actually down to 0.58. So all right, yeah, not too bad for him there. It was just the computer thinking it was a little better than it was. But yeah, I would kind of agree here. Not a good move, right? You can see we have no shot really at an advantage after d6, and that's because that's kind of another one of those moves, like I referenced in the earlier analyses, that it's just a one move threat that's kind of easily shut down, right? And we don't want to be making those at all, let alone Magnus. And so I think, without a doubt, just take, and then we can worry about the rest later. But feel free to disagree. Feel free to have a look at it. Oh, I did not mean to analyze that. Whoops. Well, there goes my analysis for the day because I'm on the free plan. But yeah, feel free to disagree. Feel free to vote for any of the other options. If you're the goober that one of the three that voted for H6, you're funny. But nothing much beyond that. So a calm take. I'll vote, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for joining me.